Okay, so hopefully everybody can see the presentation, see the screen. So yeah, me and Olivier are going to talk about the Asciidoc Toolkit for LabVIEW and how that has kind of helped me in a recent project. So I'll do a quick intro and then hand over to Olivier to do a quick intro, and then we'll sort of summarize the topic and what we're going to cover, and then we'll get stuck into it. So yeah, Chris Woodhams, I'm a co-founder at LabVIEW, been into LabVIEW since sort of 2003-ish, something like that. Yeah, love it, love the community, and yeah, want to do as much as we can to help out other people and share some of our experience. So yeah, over to you, Olivier.
Yeah, first, thank you for the invitation to co-present with you on this topic. So I'm Olivier Jourdan. It sounds like I'm a French LabVIEW developer. And I started to use LabVIEW in the previous century. I never stopped since that. And I created Wovalab 7 years ago. Basically, I'm helping engineers to design, develop LabVIEW applications. I'm also helping teams with all the tools like Git, CI, documentation process, etc. And I have been working on different open source projects, and one we are going to talk about with Chris.
Awesome. So yeah, from my perspective, we had a requirement within a LabVIEW project to output a PDF report that summarized some of the results from the testing the application is doing. And we kind of were aware that there was no kind of suitable tools within the sort of core LabVIEW. So ultimately we landed on Asciidoc Toolkit for LabVIEW, and that's kind of what I'm going to sort of go through. So we'll split the presentation up a bit. So Olivier will do some of the background related to the toolkit, and I'll going to risk it and go for some live coding. So hope you strap yourselves in for that. And yeah, we'll go through it. So I'll hand over to Olivier to do the first bit, and then I'll jump in with the demo in a bit.
Okay, so just for the record, with the challenge you faced is that you needed to create modern document, PDF file, but with a great look and feel, and without the need of Microsoft Word. I think it's difficult to use it in our world. Being able to adapt this document to your graphical guidelines and making this possible in LabVIEW. That's the challenge the Asciidoc Toolkit tried to face. So you can go to the next slide. So the first stage of this toolkit is to create the content of the final document. For this, we are using the Asciidoc syntax. This syntax is a lightweight markup language. You probably know other kind of lightweight markup language like Markdown. It's widely used in all the web UI when you add comments or write posts on a website. There's the Wikimedia markup language too. And those lightweight markup language are easier to write than XML or HTML. They are human readable, and that's the cornerstone of the Asciidoc Toolkit. If we look at the syntax on the next slide, this is the very simple Asciidoc file. So for the extension for the Asciidoc syntax files is Asciidoc. And you can see that kind of readable. And if we look at the syntax, the first thing we can look at on the next slide is how the sections are defined. You can see here all the section of this small document, and each section is defined with an equal sign followed by a space. And if you want a subsection, you add a second equal, etc., for each level you want to have in the document. Another syntax we can look at on the next slide is how we can add an image in that kind of document. Here you have this keyword image, and then the name of the file, and you can add a caption, you can add some metadata to the image. We can have tables on the next slide. So here is a way to define a table with 3 columns and 2 rows. So still it's readable. It's not that easy to write directly on a notepad. I think there is another example of syntax in the next slide. Yes, this is the admonition block. This is a way to highlight part of your content, and you can set different type of admonition block, note, tip, warning, caution. So that's very basic example of the Asciidoc syntax. There are much more in the syntax. You can do very powerful things, but it gives you a big picture of the syntax. And the thing is, we are LabVIEW developer. We don't like to write code, to write syntaxes like that. So we are lucky because there is a toolkit. So on the next slide, we can see that on the IPM, you can download the Asciidoc for LabVIEW toolkit that is going to help you create this kind of file with the Asciidoc syntax directly in LabVIEW. And Chris, I think it's your part now to demonstrate how you can get that kind of file with this toolkit.
Okay, here we go. So I'm going to start off with a relatively blank VI here, and when you install the add-on, so when you install the toolkit, that drops into your palettes here, and gives you this palette, which I'll leave on the screen. And in essence, we've kind of got 2 parts to it when we're putting the content together. So there's probably three parts in general. There's the actual document that we create, and then there's sections within the document, and then sort of the content within the sections. So this is nicely kind of layered in tiers in terms of the structure. And then the next bit of it is the rendering, which we're going to cover in a little bit. So I will render the document, but I'm not going to go into any detail about that until we've sort of covered that section. So first of all, we'll put down the create function. We need to add some sections to it, and then we need to generate it. So those are the 3 functions that I need to be able to create the document. And we'll give the document a title. We'll give that a title. Won't fill in any other bits just yet. I'm just going to turn the table of contents off to start with, just because I'll introduce that later on. And then the first bit I'm going to do is just create a section that's going to have some just real straightforward stuff in there. So when you put the create section down, you need to just give it a title. So I'm going to show you some stuff around paragraphs. So I'm just going to call that paragraphs. My spelling is terrible, so don't comment on that, please. And then to add something to the section, we call that's called a block. And the block needs some sort of content, and that's when we get down to the yellow functions a little further down. So I'm going to stick a paragraph in, and I'm also going to do an admonition as well, just to show you what that looks like. So with the paragraph, it's dead simple. So you've got the ability to control the alignment, but it's literally a string. So we can put anything in there we want. I'm just going to copy some stuff out of the example that ships and drop that in there. And then for my admonition, I'm going to call, you get the ability to, like Olivier was alluding to, you've got lots of different options to have as the kind of title part of it. So we're sticking a note for this, and again, you just drop in some text, wire that up, and then we want both of those bits in our section. So to do that, we need to put in a just build an array of those paragraphs and the admonition. Oops, sorry, cancel that. So we're going to need to create those as separate blocks. So first of all, I'll create the paragraph block in my section, and then we'll create another block which will have our admonition in it and keep flowing through our section. And then essentially I'm just going to wire that up to the add section of the document, and that's everything I need to drop these couple of bits of content into a section within a document. And at the moment, this is all this is going to do is generate the ASCII doc. So I'm going to drop that into this folder here. Again, yeah, ignore the fact that I've got a constant there, but that's where it's going to go. And then I've got an error. Just have a quick look at that. Oh yeah, because I've got the renderer over here out of view, but I need to tell it what format I need it. So it's going to be a PDF. And there's something else. File path. Oh, I've got that in the wrong one. Get rid of that.
You can remove this.
Yeah, that's it. So ignore that bit for a sec. So I'm going to run this, and what it will do is this bit will create the ASCII doc file, and the bit to the right will actually create the PDF, and we'll go into that in a sec. So I'll just run that, and then whilst that's running, I'll go to where it's saved. So that ASCII doc has been created there, so I'll open that up. And you'll see this is familiar from what Olivier just showed. So we've got our top level section where we've got our title, and then we've built in a section called paragraphs, and we can see those two bits that have been added in there. So dead simple, like Olivier says, readable. And then the PDF doc has also been created here too, and that looks something like that. So all very simple. So this is the admonition, so we can change that to be whatever we like, whether it's tip, warning, whatever, out of that selection from that drop down list. So dead basic stuff, and we've got our first document ready, working. So what we're going to do now is add some bits around styling, so show you how you can just the styling of your text to make it bold, make it italic, that kind of thing. So that's in here. So I'm going to add a line break. Where have I? Bit. Oh yeah, this bit. So these two bits I need. So this bit is going to do the actual formatting. So you've got an enum input on there, so you can determine what you want to do to the text that you add in. So we'll do a bold bit, and then so this is the bit that's going to be bold, and then I'm going to concatenate that with some other text. You realise how long stuff takes until you do it when people are watching you.
I am timing each and every operation.
So that's my bit there. I'm going to copy this from somewhere else. It's like Blue Peter. This is something I did earlier. So we've got an italic one as well in there. And I'm just going to create, using this function, this just puts a line break between the two bits of text. So that's all that's doing. And then I'm going to chuck that into a paragraph. and I'm going to create another section that I'm going to add a block to. So hopefully I'm not moving too fast here, but I need a little bit more space in a sec. So I'm just going to drop this down here a bit. So I've got my section called styles. Oops. Got my section called styles. I've added a paragraph block that's got a bit of bold text and a bit of italic text. Let me get rid of that. And then I'm going to add this section into here. So to do that, I just need to put in a build array here. And chuck that section up there. And then I'll run it again. I'll show you the Asciidoc and I'll show you the PDF. So that Asciidoc's updated. So you can see I've got this additional section in there now that has got my bolded text and italic text. So the bold is denoted by the fact it's got asterisks either side, and the italics is an underscore either side. So that's the indicator to the system that it knows that it's going to have to convert that to italic. And then when my document doesn't look like it's updated, maybe because I had it open. I think I had it open, so that's why it hasn't overwritten. But I'll show you that in a sec when I do the next one. So that's a bit on styles, which I'll show you when I open the PDF up in a sec. The next bit I'm going to show you is about the table. So this is kind of like a rinse and repeat. So I'm realizing that it's getting a little bit boring. So I'm going to go a little bit quicker to put some stuff in a little bit quicker. So the table stuff, you can do it in two different ways. So you can do it by defining a string array. Whoops. Just that. So when you're doing it with a string array, you always need to define your column headers, but you also need to define your content as well. So in your application, you obviously might generate this as part of your LabVIEW code from whether it might be results data. So that's the way what we did. We were generating this kind of data from the acquired data in the system. Oops. And then creating it similar to this. So that's going to be a table that's been created through that method. And then another way of doing it is, bear with me, through the addition or the creation of blocks. So scroll down a little bit. So this is building it up so that you can a little bit more flexibly create the content, right? Because in this way, you can literally just put content into a box. Whereas with this approach, you can sort of control exactly what goes in each cell. So you've got a little bit more flexibility. So in this example, I am so for I've got a 2-column table with it'll have 2 rows in. So one of the columns has got this just showing you how to merge columns. So that's what this cluster down here is doing. So it's saying I want to span the columns, I want to span 2 of them, and the other bits are default. So you can obviously manage the different. Let's just have a look at those. Make sure that's what I'm. Yes, just alignment things that you can adjust if you'd like to. So this builds up the table data for you. So I'm just going to add. My wires are going to go all over the place here, so just ignore that as well. And then I'm dropping this down to add that section in there. So now I've closed the PDF, I should be able to create that. So I'll give that a run again. So obviously the Asciidoc now is getting a little bit more complicated, but still human readable and structured. So we've now got the first table that's been constructed from an array, and the second table that's been constructed using blocks. So in terms of the PDF and what that looks like. So again, we've got our style text in this section. And then for our tables, we've got a cell down here that's being merged across the two columns. And we've got some add omissions in a couple of the cells just to show you that working as well. So you can go and you can put images in there, you can put tables in tables and all sorts of more complicated stuff. So you can take that to wherever you want, really, depending on what your requirements are. Okay, make sure I close that. And then the next bit, so I'm running out of space a little bit here. Let me just try tapping that over there a bit. The next bit, I'm just going to second to last bit I'm going to go through is images. So with images, you've got to do a couple of things. So we need to tell the Asciidoc creator where the images are. So we effectively have to create, or it's going to be a relative folder to where the file gets saved. So if I just show you my Windows Explorer, so in here, this is where the file is getting saved. And I've created a folder here called images, which is where I'm going to store any images that I'd like to keep in my document. So all we've got to do is tell Asciidoc that that's where the images are going to be stored. Oh my God. So yeah, that tells the toolkit where the images are going to be saved. And then to actually add one in, again, it's exactly the same process. And this time I'm just going to put it into a subsection so that we can have a look at how that's done as well. Let me move this out of the way. So for this, I'm creating a section called images. And then I've got an image in that folder, in the images folder, called mluglogo.png. And I've added some alt text. You can add a title. We'll do that from the same. You can see that. So that's just another block another function that we're going to add into the block for that section. And then we're going to create the subsection, and again, just add it into my array of sections up here. So now I should have all of that sorted, I think. Yep, so now I should get an image at the end in a new section called images. So just going to run that. In here, you can see that I've got this is a subsection, so you can see it's got 3 equal signs. So that's one more than the tables one and the other ones. So it's another layer down. And then as Olivier showed in his slides, we've got the image tag, and then it's telling us what the name of that is, and we've got our description or meta, the alt text as well. And then in terms of the PDF, that gets chucked in, and it doesn't look like you can tell it's a smaller font size than that, so you can tell it's a subsection, but I'm going to add some numbers in a sec. But you can see that I've got my image in there that's got the figure against it that I added in. So that's images. So the last bit then, the last bit is about the table of contents. At the moment there isn't one, but we can quite easily include one. So first of all, what I want to do is make sure God, it's kind of done. Put that back in. Is make sure that section. What's going on there? Make sure that section numbers are included. So I'm just going to set this attribute in the file, and I'll sort of show you a little bit about attributes there as well. And then that's default to true. So I'm going to add section numbers, and then I'm also going to turn on the table of contents. And I think I'm right in saying with this one, with this one, Olivier, this one basically says how many levels on the table of contents you want to see, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to say that I want to see 2 levels, because I know I've got 2 levels in my table of contents. So this will set attributes, and we'll have a little look at that in a sec when we get the file up. So I'll run that again. Go to here. So what you'll see at the top of the page is the attributes. So I added this one in when I added my image, and I just added this one in when I updated what I wanted, the levels of the table of contents. So these attributes can be used more flexibly than what they are at the moment, and we're going to go into that in a sec. But just to show you that this is where they get defined, and then you can also use it throughout the Asciidoc file as well, which we'll go into in a bit. So now my final document before I hand it back over to Olivier is that I've got my table of contents in here. I've now got numbers on my paragraphs, so I can link through to these quite nicely, and I can now see a bit more clearly that that's a subsection of my section 3 tables. So yeah, I think that was everything I was going to cover. So back over to you, Olivier, and I'll get the presentation up. Yeah.
So this was a great demo, Chris, and you show part of the magic. So we started talking about the Asciidoc syntax, that is just plain text file with a specific syntax. The toolkit is creating this plain text file, and at the end you can render this file into PDF. So we are using behind the scene the Asciidoc toolchain. So if we go to the next slide, what is Asciidoc? There is a misspelling, it's Asciidoc, and Asciidoc is a text processor that is going to use the ADOC file and generate different kind of format, PDF, HTML, but EPUB3, other format. The most used, in my opinion, and in our world is the PDF or the HTML5. And this is this toolchain that is doing all the magic, transforming the ADOC file into a readable file format. Next slide. We have just this thing in a picture. We have the file. We are using the Asciidoc tool. It's a command line tool, and we can get HTML or PDF file. So there, if you just have an ADOC file, on the following slide, we can see that those files can be used with the tools we can use. If you are doing some text-based language, you probably use Visual Studio Code. There is an extension that's allows you to see your ADOC file and have a live preview of the HTML version of the ADOC file. Web browsers can have extensions that do the rendering of the ADOC file directly in the window of your web browser. And even with GitLab and GitHub and all that kind of tools we have on the web, if you have, for example, an ADOC file in your repository, if you are opening it in GitHub or GitLab, it's going to display the rendered version of the ADOC file, not the raw file with the syntax. So this is something you can use in your code if you have README file or other kind of document you want to follow with Git. But the real thing we want to do is to have the PDF or the HTML file generated in LabVIEW. you saw in the demo that it can be done, but how it works. So with the API, the toolkit is offering. If we go to the next slide, Chris, thanks. We can do two things. We can more than just creating the Asciidoc file. We can install the toolchain, and we can use the command line needed to generate the file. So on the next slide, we can see that we have, if you install the Asciidoc toolkit, when you install it with VIPM, it's going to install the toolchain in the same time. So on your development machine, you install Asciidoc and you have the toolchain. You can generate the PDF or the HTML file starting from your Asciidoc file. But if you want to install the the application you are creating on a computer, on other computers that don't have the development environment, that don't have the toolkit, you have functions in the API that allows you to install, to check if the toolchain is installed, to check if it's need an update, and finally to install the Asciidoc toolchain the same way VIPM, the VIP is doing the install when you install it with VIPM. So you can distribute your application and generate the PDF. There's no, and it was one of the challenge when I created the tool 4 or 5 years ago. It was how I can distribute this tool and still create the PDF or the HTML without bothering with what it's installed on the machine. And so the second part is how I can render the file. I need to use a command line interface. What will be the command I need to use, etc. So on the next slide, we can see that the toolkit is providing functions that basically take an Asciidoc file and start the rendering of the file, and you can choose HTML5 or PDF as an output. And that's the basic way to generate the final file. And I think now Chris is going to do much more magic with the rendering in his demo.
Yeah, more magic. Here we go.
No pressure.
Yeah. Okay. So switching back, and now we'll have a look over on the right hand side. Just go to the top of that. These are the rendering, like what Olivier just shared. So it's literally these two VIs, and obviously under the hood there's some clever stuff going on that Olivier's put together. So just to give you a glimpse of that, I wonder whether I can. So this is the bit. Oh, not showing you that, am I? This is the bit that he was just referring to, where it does the tool chain check. So this checks whether it exists, and then this installs it all. So that all, you can obviously turn that off to speed things up, but that can be enabled to help with that process, which is really good. And then the second part of it is where it's using the command line interface. So this is, I'm not going to dig into this too much, but this is doing all the clever stuff and the magic to get that Asciidoc file into a PDF or HTML, depending on what you want to create. So that's a little bit under the hood, but I'm not going to go into that. So what we've got here then is, so we've obviously seen it create the PDF, so I'm not going to go over that again. But what we've got the ability to do is define themes, and themes can also be made up of sort of customized fonts. So back in my folder structure, I've got the PDF theming resources. So in here, I've got a couple of files where it's defining a I haven't opened these before, so I wasn't expecting that. But this is so I haven't actually looked at these in any detail actually. But this effectively defines a font that can be used within the theme. So the theme is probably the more interesting one. And maybe Olivier, in a bit, you can cover how you created those font files, because again, I haven't seen those before, and that was a little bit of a surprise. But we've got a couple of themes in here, so just to show you one of those and what they look like. So in here, you've got loads of different things. One of the really useful bits is you can define either what the header looks like and what it contains. So again, anything that's surrounded by these types of brackets is an attribute, so that you can define that and then modify it so that it gets populated at runtime. So you can obviously control what you want to see in your header, and also the same for your footer, and you can control what the title page would look like, what it contains, and all that kind of stuff. So that I think only applies to certain types of document, like because at the moment what we're generating is an article, I think. So the default on here, doc type, is an article, so it doesn't have a front page. But if you selected book, you can sort of populate a front page and have whatever you'd like on there. So that's what that's doing in terms of the theme. So we obviously need to tell the renderer to use this theme. So the way that we do that is that we use a property node in here. So in here, I'm just going to drop a property node, and we're going to use the PDF theming settings. So we've got a few things in here to look at. So we can define where the themes are stored, where the fonts are stored, and then we can define which theme. So I said I've got 2 themes in there, so I need to tell ASCII Doctor that which theme I want it to use. So I'm going to go ahead and put that together, and it's going to be another Blue Peter moment. So drop that in there, boom, 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 and then here are my 2 paths to my themes and to my fonts. Oops. And then I'm going to start off with the Wovalab theme. There we go. So now I've told the renderer that I want to use this theme, and this theme will also use these fonts, which is why I also need to tell it about the directory for the fonts. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. So now I've turned on the fact that it will, when it completes the document, it's going to open it for me. So we should see that launch as soon as it's ready. And with this, you won't see any changes to your Asciidoc file. Okay, now, so I've got the Wovalab theme on here, so you'll see that all the fonts have changed. We've got a nice header with a logo and a bit of a description. And in our footer, again, we've got some details around the paging, the numbering on the pages and things like that. So lots of things that you can play with and make it look however you want it to. And I think one thing you can imagine is that you might create a very similar document like this for one customer, but you might want a slightly different theme for a different customer. So all we need to do in that instance is just change over the theme that we want to use. It might be a way that you would approach it. So I've just updated I've copied that theme, I've changed the logo. You might change other stuff in reality, but all I've done is change the logo that's going to appear in the header, and everything else has been kept the same. But now I've got the Mlug logo up in there instead of the Wovalab one. And you can imagine that you might have other things that you want to control relative to a specific customer or a particular report type or a particular output, and the theme is a really nice way of managing that. Olivier, do you want to cover fonts at this stage, just to tick that off, or is it not much to tell? Or
No,
what do you think?
basically you can use any font you want. You need to have the files. You need to so basically you need 4 different the bold, the italic style for the font. And in the theme, you are telling the Asciidoc toolchain to use that kind of font. And you can really easily change the look and feel of your document just by changing the font and changing the color of the font. So, and this is something I didn't say earlier, but the powerful of the Asciidoc thing is that you have the same plain text file and you can get an output that could be really different. For PDF, as you said, you change the theme and it's going to be displayed really differently. So you can focus on the content and all the look and feel is done with the theming. And you can also, with the exact same plain text file, create an HTML file if you want this. So that's why I think it's really interesting, because one source, different outputs.
Yeah. And where did you get these files from?
You can, those files are from Google's font.
Okay.
But fonts can be purchased. You can get find you have some fonts on your operating system, but there are many different provider of fonts. Some are free, some are paid one, but you can get those files really easily on the internet.
And like you say, all you've done then is reference them in this document. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, you are defining the name of the family, Nonito, and then you said normal style is this file, italic is this file, bold is this file, etc. And then when you are using styles, when the sections are used, it's defined in the renderer that sections level 1 are using the bold font, etc., etc.
Wicked. Nice one. So the last little bit, well, it's a combo of attributes and the command line. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create an attribute. Oh, I should get it from the palette really, because then kind of see where it all comes from. So on the palette, I've got it open there. How have I just missed that? That's unbelievable. So on here, we've got the ability to define add a custom attribute. So we'll use that function and make sure that goes into the Asciidoc, because that's super important. It needs to be defined in Asciidoc. Otherwise, when you try and modify it later on, it obviously won't be there. So we define it with this cluster. And I'll just show you all those labels. So the attribute has a name. So in this instance, what I'm going to use is the example of so a document might be, the data within a document might correspond to a different standard, right, that you want to be able to update without having to change the raw content of the document. So I'm going to set it as some sort of made up number that I don't even know if it exists or not, but one of them. We're going to enable it. So that means it will get created. So first of all, I'm just going to run that just to show you where that gets put into the document. So we should be able to see that in the Asciidoc. Yeah, go away now. And so that will have not changed the PDF, right? Because I've done nothing on the PDF side yet. But in my Asciidoc, I've now got an attribute called standard, and it's been initialized to the value that I've set at the beginning. And then what I want to do then is use that attribute in my code somewhere in my, in the ASCII doc. So to do that, what I'm going to do is add another paragraph, and I'm just going to chuck it in somewhere. God, should have thought about this a little bit more perhaps, but I'm just going to add another block to this paragraph section up here. So what you can see I've done here is I've put the name of the standards in these brackets, which means that I'm now referring to that attribute that I've created up here. So what we should find is that this paragraph gets created with that value populated in it for now, just to show that that's working. So I'm going to run that, and then we should be able to open this up. Just close that a sec. I'll come back to that. So in my ASCII doc file, I've got the attribute up there, and then down here I've got the content that I added in. So it's obviously still referencing that attribute, hasn't rendered it, so it hasn't changed it to this value. All it's doing is putting in a reference to that attribute. So then we should be able to see that in the PDF doc, we've got the rendered version of it says and updates it to the actual value that it's set to at the beginning. So that's pretty neat. So one example that Olivier had was if you had a document that had either you want to make sure that the LabVIEW spelling's right, so view's all uppercase, then you can have an attribute that defines that and specifies it, and then just use that throughout your document wherever you're going to use the word LabVIEW, and you know that it's going to be consistent throughout. I thought another thing might be that you might have a LabVIEW version that might change in some sort of documentation, so you might need that as an attribute so that you can populate that externally to the document generation stuff. So now what I'll show you is how we can update that as part of the rendering process. So we do that by using the options part of this property node. So this is just an array of strings. So you can define multiple things that you want to update in the command line. So this basically adds a parameter onto the command line text, doesn't it, Olivier? And you can effectively just do as many as you like, I guess. Like there's not any limit on that in terms of what you want to do. So what I'm going to do is put that in there. So my attribute is called standard. Whoops. My attribute is called standard, and I'm going to set it to something different. So now what will happen is the ASCII doc will get created with this value, and then when the document gets rendered, that attribute is going to get updated to this value that I've specified in here, and that's all I need to do. So hit the run. So just close that for a sec. I'll show you the ASCII doc. So this has still got that reference to the standard attribute, and it's still got the standard attribute set to that initial value that I populated in the LabVIEW code. But then when I open up the PDF, that's been updated to the standard that I specified in my my options value. So you can probably start imagining how you might utilize that function to be able to create some really flexible stuff. I've just realized that it's 4:03. So I guess we'll that was the last bit of the demonstration anyway, so relatively good timing, I guess. But just to wrap up on the slides, this is kind of the final takeaway that I got from using this toolkit for this project, and it's all about that impression that you give, and if you want to look professional in your reports, I don't see any other way of doing it as easily as you can with the ASCII doc toolkit for LabVIEW. So if you are doing PDF reports and you're doing it differently and it's easier than that, then I want to know about it. But if you're not, then I suggest you take a look at this toolkit and have a bash with it, because I hopefully have shown you how easy it is to put together. But over to you, Olivier, just to wrap things up from your side.
No, I like the final takeaway you put in this slide. If you want to see a way of using it, you can also try the Asciidoc open source project I have, because at the beginning I created this toolkit for the open source project that is creating documentation for LabVIEW code. So that's another topic. But at the beginning, it was the reason why I created this. But now I'm using it for lots of my customers to create reports like you. And I know that Paul Morris from Precision Acoustic, I know that because I work for him to create an API based on this toolkit to create calibration reports. I think like you did, and it's massively using the attributes you demonstrate. We have a template, an Asciidoc template, and we are using the toolkit to modify this template and to generate and render the final calibration report using the attributes to modify specific part of the document. So I think it's really flexible to create PDF document. So yeah, and when I saw the comments you did on LinkedIn, I was very happy that you have been able to use this toolkit for your customer, and apparently is happy by the results. So
yeah, absolutely. Awesome. We'd love to take questions, but what we will do is take any questions offline. So obviously reach out to myself or Olivier and drop some questions in the chat. We'll pick them up as we're going through the last presentation. But we'll draw the line there. I think thanks, Olivier, for putting that together and helping me out with that.